Hello everyone, and welcome to this 15th episode of Brilliancies of Mikhail. And today we are going to analyze a game played between Geden Bratza and Mikhail in Tallinn 1971. So yeah, pretty standard setup in the opening as we can see on the board. It's a pretty symmetric position. And Tal has just played the move knight to d4. Yeah, here knight to d4. And he's certainly exerting some pressure in the center. So, what should get in play here? Of course, he can castle long, he can castle short, which are the usual moves, but he tries to do something different here in this position. So, basically, the main problem that White has here is that he cannot take the knight in any possible way. Of course, knight captures on loses your piece because now after he captures, you have to lose one of these two pieces. So, you cannot do this as White. And if you capture with the bishop after pawn captures knight e2, certainly it's not that bad, but the bishop on e3 was much more useful to trade against the g7 bishop. That's usually the fianchetto variation idea when you go bishop e3 queen d2. Usually the idea is to trade off the bishop for the g7 bishop, which is a prime defender of the black king. And then if you do this, then that is not what you have achieved after these moves in this opening. So of course, Gedin doesn't want to do that, so he doesn't capture with the bishop. Well, he plays the move knight to e2 here, and that makes sense. He doesn't want to capture with any of these two pieces. Well, he gives another opportunity that okay, I'm going to put my knight to e2, and now I'm going to capture with this knight to d4, and trade off a very powerful knight versus a very what do you say, relatively less powerful knight on e2. So he offers a trade this way, but although this this has been played, I found some other games also where this move has been played, but Tal certainly exploits this situation to its what you can say full limit in this particular position. So you all guys can pause this move. You can say pause the video, sorry, at this point, and you can find the move of Mikhail Tal. It's actually a brilliant stuff. I will say it's not what you usually do in any openings, but you know the vision that Tal had and the ability to spot this at this particular stage of the game is incredible. So you guys can pause the video and find this move while I give you a couple of seconds. Yeah, so for those who could do it, you are great in finding overloading of pieces. And for those who would enjoy the show, Tal plays the move bishop to h3. And Tal is basically asking question to get in that what are you going to do with your setup now. Of course you can't take because knight f3 forks the king and the queen. Yeah, you don't want to lose your queen like that. So what else can you do? You also cannot defend the bishop because then simply bishop captures. You cannot recapture because same knight f3 is a threat, and if you capture the knight then simply pawn captures, rook captures, pawn captures, queen captures, and after that this is a position where after bishop captures on b2 you are certainly down a piece and you're completely losing in this position as White. So again, that is not possible, and you can't defend the bishop anyhow. Like rook g1 is not possible, as we have seen. King f1 is also not possible because now, of course, not bishop captures on g2, but as one of the legends has said, always maintain retention. So knight captures on f3 first. Maintaining this pin is very important because now the bishop can't take the knight. The queen is under attack. You have to move your queen. Once the queen is moved, just bishop captures, king captures, and the knight retreats back to d4, and you're again up a piece. So completely winning the game. So again, this also cannot be played. So what is the option here for Getten? Well, he chooses to do something very similar, but of course, he loses the piece here. That's the least compensation that you have to offer as White. But he tries to play a relatively more active game. So you have knight f captures on d4. And what do you do? Now first bishop captures on g2, very correct by Mikhail Tal, attacking the rook on h1. You have rook to g1 and now e captures on f4. And yeah, again, what do? Your bishop is under attack. You can't take the bishop on g2, so Gaten captures, knight captures on d4. And he basically is not sitting at any trap, but he's playing the best possible continuation. There is nothing that White can do. It's already completely lost position here for White. And what do you do now? Of course, you can retreat bishop h3, but then g4, it will take a few efforts for this bishop to involve back in the game. So Tal finds another way. He says, okay, let it be under attack. I'm going to attack your pieces. He plays c5 here. And what do you do? Of course, you have to move your knight. Knight comes to b5, and Tal plays bishop to f3. He says, okay, now I have to defend my bishop. And well, okay, it's still okay for me. Now g4 by Gitten. Of course, he doesn't want the bishop to escape even after that. And he kind of traps a bishop here with the g pawn and the e pawn, but Tal finds d5 here. He says, well, okay, yeah, when your pieces are trapped, you need to break open the center. d5, very correctly played by Tal. And as Gitten, what do you do now? Well, you can capture, but then this bishop captures. The bishop is now out in the open. You're still down a piece, and you're completely losing the game as white. So he tries to complicate things here, and he plays bishop captures on c5. And he basically says that, okay, what do you do? Of course, d captures on e4 is still winning for Tal, but Tal says, well, okay, this bishop seems to be much more powerful. I will try to eliminate that first. Rook to c8. You have bishop to a3 by Gordon, and now d captures on e4 by Tal. You have d captures on e4 by Gordon, and well, this is a very nice moment where he offers a queen trade. He says, well, you can go into this, but certainly this allows Tal to kind of still it's better for Tal, but he can kind of he's kind of feel the pressure where bishop is attacking the e7 knight. It's pinned, and still, I mean, you can just give up this rook on f8, just captures, king captures. You still have two pieces for a rook. You're completely winning the game. But no need to complicate this game to this level. I mean, this is a clear piece of game, and Tal needs to just keep his composure here, which he indeed keeps. So after this of queen trade offered by White, he says, well, okay, I'm not going to go for that. He complicates even further. Like keeping the pieces is the most best way to keep your chances of great attack alive in the game. So he plays queen b6, and he says, well, okay, now your knight can be captured. I'm going to capture your knight. And what he basically asks yet a question that how good can you calculate? And this is now a race of calculation. So bishop captures on e7 by Gitten, queen captures on b5, bishop captures on f8, and now queen captures on b2. And you have to capture the bishop. I mean, there is nothing else. Your rook is under attack, your bishop is under attack. So bishop captures on g7 by Gitten, king captures on g7, and at this point, Gitten plays rook to c1, and it may seem that after the entire storm is gone, uh, after this Tal's fantasy variation of queen b6 and going for this b5 knight and b2 pawn, he has certainly lost the exchange in the process. I mean, after all these things, after the pieces are exchanged, still white is exchange up, so he has fair chances. But Tal proves why this position is completely winning for him. And again, I will ask you guys to pause the video at this particular move and find the perfect combination for black to win the game. Well, yeah, for those who find it, congratulations. You're now again a nice, spotter of overloaded pieces. And Tal plays the move rook 8. He says, well, okay, your queen is overloaded to the defense of the rook. You, of course, can't capture the rook because now queen c1 check, followed with queen d1. Queen captures on d1 is a nice little checkmate. So you do not allow that. So queen to e3 by Gutton, and now Tal plays queen captures on c2. Again, I could have asked you guys to pause, but this is just a very brilliant stuff from Tal. He sacrifices his queen. Of course, you can't take it because now the rook is overloaded. Rook d1 is nice little checkmate here for black. So what do you do? Here he's completely without a move. You can take the bishop, but then comes queen capture on c1 with a check. King e1, rook to d2 with a check. King e3, rook to d1 with a discovered check from the queen. King to e2, and now comes queen to d2 with a nice little checkmate. So again, if everything is going to lead to a checkmate eventually. So brilliant calculations from Tal. So again, you can't take the bishop, you can't take the queen. What else do you want to do? The threat is again rook to d1 check. So he plays king to f1, get in here, and Tal says, well, okay, no issues, rook to d1 check. And what do you do here as white? In this position, of course, white resigned the game. You can't handle pressure much more than this because the bishop is covering all the squares. This is not going to work because simply queen captures, queen e1, that means queen d3 with a check, queen back to e2, and simply queen captures on e2 will be a nice little checkmate. So after rook d1 check, Gutton resigned. He could have played queen e1 here to lose in a much more fantasy way. That is queen to e2 with a checkmate. You see, there are four, I mean, leave apart the king, there are three major white pieces on the last rank. The queen is pinned to the rook, and this is a nice little checkmate at the center of the board. So again, a very fierce and a brilliant game, and that just proves how attentive and tactically alert Tal was, even while playing the opening. I mean, to find Bishop H3 in the opening was the best possible counter chance that he had in the entire game, and he did found it and certainly went on to win the game. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video too. Do subscribe to our channel to follow this series. We have been covering now. This is the 15th episode. So I have received a lot of feedback regarding this games of Tal, and of course, it's odd to receive such a nice feedback because Tal has played these games in a really, what do you can say, a god of chess level games that he has played. So once again, thank you for your support, and yeah, see you soon in the next video. That is the 16th episode of this series, Brilliancies with Mikhail.